Hello, number ones, and welcome to Metatron's Academy. So how do you choose what language you should learn? And that's the question that has been asked from the channel K. Klein with 142,000 subscribers. You'll find a link in the description and pinned comment. Well, let's see what kind of recommendations he gives us, and let's go.
English speakers who have a vague wish to learn a language, but who've never managed to stay motivated, and I think a big part of that is that there are too many languages in the world, and it's too easy to start half learning 4 different ones and then giving up on all of them.
Particularly if you have the passion for it.
Also have a following of insane polyglots who, by language 6, are not really sure which one to go for next.
I hate the name polyglot. Please do not ever call me a polyglot. It's a slur.
So I'm here to tell you what to do, so you don't have to make a decision. 3 caveats before we start. 1, this is about what language to learn, not how to learn it. 2, there might be multiple languages selected for by my requirements at each stage. Actually, there definitely are, but I'm going to say 1 because otherwise I wouldn't be making the choice, would I? 3, this is a guide for English speakers, especially native speakers, but everything I say will of course be affected by your knowledge of other languages. So question 1, do you live in a country or community where you don't speak the native language? If the answer is yes, then learn it, no matter what. This is the language you probably already are learning, and if not, the one you definitely should be.
I actually agree with that, and because I mean at the end of the day what I noticed is that whenever this happens, so someone lives for 20 years in a country but they only stick with people who speak their own native language, they end up not learning the language, the local vernacular. It's a waste. I would say in every single case after 20 years you'll regret it. I've never heard anyone who told me that. Like, I could speak Japanese fluently, and there was this guy who had lived there for decades, and he couldn't even read and write anything. Well, even read and write, it's difficult, but you know what I mean. And then he said, man, I wish I did. Exactly. So, good advice.
You can survive in most countries with only English, and in many you can live your life. But if you're in Germany and not speaking German, then you are excluding yourself from a lot of the experience of living in Germany.
Culture.
In my opinion, one of the most important things we can do for personal and communal well-being is feeling connected to the physical and social space we occupy. And language is a big, if not the biggest, part of that.
Guten Tag.
You don't want to be stuck just talking to the same circle of internationals while you're in a different country. It will make your time there worse, and frankly, it is kind of disrespectful to the country you've moved to.
You're absolutely right. That's why, I mean, true, 100%. I kind of find it funny, though, that we do say that. You go to Japan, it's disrespectful not to learn Japanese. You go to China, it's disrespectful not to learn Mandarin or whatever the heck, depending on which area of China you go. You go to France, it's disrespectful not to speak learn French. You go to, I mean, at this point, if I moved to Zimbabwe, I would learn whatever, even if a European language is one of the options. I think it's nice to learn a tribal language, an original language of the people there. 100%. For some reasons, though, if you come to America, learn English, it's considered, bigot.
I don't care if the language is hard, you'll never have a better opportunity to practice it than now. I don't care if everyone speaks English anyway. Slowly insert an increasing amount of the language
What did he write there? Nihongo manabu.
into conversations and
Study Japanese.
everyday interactions until you're good enough to force everyone to speak their native language with you. If you're in Sweden, even if people are telling you that Swedish doesn't matter and that they'd rather just speak English, learn the language out of respect for the people who wouldn't rather speak English, for the culture at large, and for the general health of the language. If you're in the Netherlands, learn Dutch out of spite. I'm not trying to come
This thing with Dutch keeps coming up, and I freaking love it. It's a meme at this point.
across as hateful to the people who do live in a community without knowing its language. I know and am friends with such people, but for you, the search for a language is over now, and deep down you already knew it. Okay. But if you answered no, then the next question is, do you speak your heritage language? Like, is one side of your family French or something? If no, then learn this one. It's a language you'll get plenty of opportunity to use.
Yeah, this is very well structured. I'm impressed.
It will connect you with your family more. You probably already half know a bunch of words and phrases. You've heard the pronunciation growing up. If this is the case with both sides of your family, like one parent speaks one language and the other speaks a different one, then it's time to choose which parent you prefer. If yes, or you don't have a heritage language, then instead pick the language of your romantic partner and their family. Note I said romantic partner here, not crush. In fact, if your crush speaks any of the languages from this question onwards, then that's an automatic skip. Next, a language your friend group, or much of your friend group speaks, then the language of a really close friend. For both of these, again, you'll have a lot of motivation and opportunity to practice. If none of that applies to you, well, are you one of these hyper-practical freak people who just really wants to learn the most useful language? Before I answer that question, you should ask yourself if you want a hyper-practical way to learn a language from this video. If yes, then you should check out today's video sponsor, italki. italki is a
very cool.
language learning platform.
Let me see. So get a $5 off using Klein. Guys, link in the description of his video.
italki for sponsoring this video. Where was I? Oh yes, the most useful language. The thing with this is,
Man, you know what? Why? How is it possible that in the language space we've got YouTubers with millions and millions of subscribers that keep repeating nonsense? You can learn a language in 3 days if you buy my book, 50,000 words a day. That's what I do when I'm on a holiday. And then a literal stickman, is doing a good job. Like, the language community is in shambles at this point.
as an English speaker, you already speak it. No, I'm not saying that other languages aren't tangibly quote-unquote useful in business, navigating life, getting a job, whatever it might be, because they certainly are. But what I am saying is that from the English speaker's perspective, there's no real all-rounder that can kind of nebulously help you, because that's generally English. It will be much more specific to the places you want to go and
Exactly, it depends on where you live, I suppose.
the specific industries you're interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, most likely it will be a world language like Spanish, Chinese, French, Portuguese, maybe Arabic or German. But without knowing more details about your life, I couldn't really tell you. The good news is, if you're the kind of hyper-practical person who just wants to get the most useful language under their belt to further their career, or whatever it is you people do, then you probably already know what language it is you should be learning, so go get it done. If you really just want to be able to communicate with the highest number of people in your surroundings, then in Canada this would probably be French, in the US Spanish, in the UK also Spanish, so when you drunkenly
No, that would be Arabic.
bother the locals in Ibiza, at least you can do it in their own language. Next, do you just want to learn a language for the sake of having learned a language? If yes, you probably want to learn the easiest language, which is obviously going to depend a lot on what
Or Urdu.
languages you already know, but from a monolingual English perspective, which are the majority of people who are going to be in this category anyway, we can look at the Category 1 languages. The languages that take the shortest amount of time to learn up to a level 3, which is a
Yeah, that's fine. There is the whole government official, at least in the US, there is a whole official list of languages that tell you this and difficulty and whatnot within the categorization. You have to consider, though, that you have to add a subjective filter to it. So a lot will depend. The difficulty of a language, there are objective aspects of difficulty and there are subjective aspects of a difficulty, and both will give you the final difficulty for you specifically.
apparently roughly a C1. These are Danish, Dutch, French, Italian, Norwegian, Portuguese, Romanian, Spanish, and Swedish, according to the US Department of State.
That's it,
All languages which are very similar to English, all Indo-European, so with relatively similar grammar, and all Germanic or Romance, so sharing a lot of vocabulary.
Yes.
If you can get over the initial hurdle of adapting to the sound and pace of the language, then a lot of comprehension is just handed to you for free because of
Handed to you also, particularly if it's Italian, because
English's Germanic origins and the massive amounts of Romance words it has loaned from French. We can rule out Spanish and French, which take 30 weeks instead of the 24 estimated for the others. This is, of course, assuming you do 23 hours of lessons a week plus 17 hours of self-studies, so if you scale this for your 1 hour lesson a week plus 30 minutes of half-heartedly staring at flashcards, that's 640 weeks, but still. Anyway, I'm glad to see French go. I'm pretty sure the French Foreign Ministry tricked the Americans into putting French as a Category 1 language as a form of psychological warfare. We can eliminate Romanian and Norwegian because they have 3 genders compared to the others 2, and if there's one thing
still shout out to my Romanian friends, you rock.
English native speakers love whining about, it's grammatical gender. Dutch is tricky because Standard Dutch pretends to have 3 genders, but it really only has 2, so I'll allow it for now. Now you can choose. Do you want more complicated verb forms or more complicated word order? Verb forms, then it's Italian, because Portuguese seems to me subjectively to be the harder one to pronounce. This is very scientific. Word order, then, well, we're not trying
I would agree with him, but then again, I'm biased, am I not?
to go for perfect pronunciation here, but I do think Swedish and Danish are harder to pronounce. Yes, Dutch does sound like this.
Laat ik het zo zeggen, er zijn sindsdien wel een paar grijze haren en wat rimpels bijgekomen.
But Danish sounds like this.
Goddag skatte. Jeg skal se lidt solskin og lidt skønner.
And with Swedish, you have to deal with pitch accent, so tonality, and the SJ sound, which has a dedicated IPA symbol because it's the only language in the world which has it. On the other hand, though, Swedish does
I did not know that. I'll look into it.
have dialects and variants without that sound and without tonemes, and I think the problems with them are more on the production side than the perception side. You know, I've always personally found Swedish very easy to understand. But in all seriousness, I don't think it's that bad. Danish is out though, I only kept it in this far as a joke really. But between Swedish and Dutch, I still think it's Dutch. At first glance, Dutch looks more complicated, you know, it sends the verb to the end in a bunch of constructions and has different singular and plural forms of the verb. But then if you look closer, you realise that Swedish doesn't send the verb to the end in subordinate clauses or infinitive constructions, which makes it even weirder, because instead of just putting it at the end and being done with it, it puts it in the middle, separated from its subject or auxiliary by certain words called clausal adverbials, but not by others. And then when you get to the verb form,
Man, this guy. This must have taken, I don't know, I was going to say this must have taken time to research, but the reality is I think he's just well versed.
sure, it doesn't distinguish singular and plural, but it does distinguish the past participle from the supine, and you might not know what that means, but trust me, it's worse.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's when you can tell something has been studied and prepared for a video, and other times you can tell when it's knowledge acquired through experience over a long period of time. I think it sounds like the latter when it comes to him, to me at least. Would you agree?
Can you tell which languages I actually know stuff about? All of them. Every single one. Of course, if you're okay with learning loads and loads of vocabulary and that's like fun to you, then I could suggest Indonesian, a very analytic language with very little morphology, and it's still considered a Category 2 language, taking only 36 weeks of intensive study. That puts it on the same level as German. That's right, even though German is one of English's closest living relatives, sharing an enormous number of words with it, the amount of grammar you have to learn for it takes the same amount of time as building up an entire Austronesian vocabulary from scratch. Which, yeah, that's the next question. Do you want to have learned a language, but you want a little bit more respect, a little bit of bragging rights, seem a little bit cooler than the guy who learned Dutch? Then yeah, it's one of these two. Indonesian for easier grammar, German for easier vocab learning. I guess really the easiest language for English native speakers to learn would be Scots. You know, Scots is English's sister language. They're both descended from Middle English. But I think it's harder to learn anyway because of the depressingly small amount of resources there are for learning it.
It's a shame. They should bring it back. They should bring it back, like bring it back meaning, not that it's dead, but kind of, lift it up.
Okay, new caveat up here. Is Scots available to you, and are you okay with random people denying the fact that you speak a second language? Probably not, because you want the credit. But if yes, then Scots. If none of that applies to you...
That happens to me, by the way, because I speak both Italian and Sicilian, and of course there are Italians not from Sicily that tell me, oh, you shouldn't count Sicilian. Really? But how do you explain the fact that if I speak it, you don't understand me? Even if you say you do. No, you don't, because when you say you know Sicilian, I understand Sicilian, it's because you watched a movie where they Italianized it, precisely for you. But if we do speak the thickest form of Sicilian, sometimes you'll understand, sure, that happens with Spanish, Portuguese, and French as well, but there will be plenty of times where it will not be mutually intelligible. We tested it, we tried it. When I went to the north, it is what it is. So it is a regional language, not just a dialect. And it does count. Just like Sardinian counts, just regional languages count.
Then take this as a PSA to learn some of your local sign language. If you're in America, ASL, in Britain, BSL, and so on. This is great for being able to communicate with deaf people in your community, obviously, people who you are likely to run into at some point in your life. It shows respect for those people around you so that they don't always have to adapt to you in every situation. But more than that, it will undoubtedly help you in your personal life at some point or another. Even if
I'm not sure about that last part, but it's nice, I think, I've never really had a situation where I needed it, I'm going to be honest with you. But it would be nice to learn a little bit of sign language.
you don't end up learning the full grammar or don't remember it later in life, just having some basis in the vocabulary and maybe some phrases and structures will allow you to learn it more easily should you ever need it. Your child or grandchild might be born deaf or hard of hearing, and as you get older, even as a non-deaf person, you know, your hearing gets worse. We are all likely to experience hearing loss over the course of our lives.
I wonder if the regular normal movement of hands of Italian is considered by now as a sign language of their own, because, you know, if you tie my hands, you make me deaf. I can't speak. If you tie my hands, I can't speak. It's a great way to make an Italian shut up.
Even as something as simple as just, you know, we're all in crowded areas sometimes, where it can be hard to hear important information. Being able to communicate simple sentences or concepts in a systematic way without any auditory component is an invaluable skill. You should.
Okay, so we are at minute 11. I'm not going to react to the whole thing, but please click the link in the description, check him out, and I'll probably watch more videos from this stickman, because they are more valuable than anything the polyglots have created in the last decade. Thank you very much for joining Metatron's Academy. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.